where kindness matters and all are welcome to the table. I'm your host, Ceci Diaz, and first and foremost, I want to thank each and every one of you for tuning in, spreading the word, rating, subscribing, and following me on this journey of benevolence. So make sure to keep tuning in because I know that you are going to leave empowered, blessed, and encouraged to be the best version of yourself. You are tuning into episode 9, Living the Dream. On this episode of Benevolence, I have someone very dear to my heart joining me at the table today. She is one of my biggest influencers, supporters, and motivators. She is my go-to girl for pretty much anything. I am truly grateful to God for allowing her to be part of my life and family. She is passionate, intelligent, creative, and is an aspiring girl boss. She is currently living in New York City, pursuing her dreams. So without further ado, I have my sister, Gaby Pavon, joining me at the table today. Hey, girl.
Hey, girl. That
fun.
Intro was I'm like over here like slowly gritting like, oh my gosh, that's intimidating.
You're finally here with me.
I know.
You're finally here with me. Like,
third time's a charm.
Third time is a charm, guys. You don't understand. Gaby was supposed to be scheduled for episode 3. Earlier this season, and we tried to do a podcast, record
in my closet floor.
Yeah. Okay, so first, when I went to New York in September, we tried to record a podcast in her closet, but it just didn't work out. Then I tried one time through the app, and that didn't work out. And then we tried again. This other program that I remember.
Yes.
So this is our fourth time.
Oh my gosh, yeah. It's our fourth
This is our fourth time, attempting to do this episode. Yeah. But you're finally here with me physically because you're here for the holiday season.
Yes.
So I'm so excited about that.
And we're in your new podcast, office studio.
Yes, guys. I haven't given you the tour because it's not finished yet, but I have, renovated. I did some renovations with my husband. So
Benevolence is growing.
Yes,
it's growing behind scenes everywhere.
Yes, it is.
It's growing.
So I want to thank you, Gaby.
I feel like you're tugging on my heart. I'm already on the verge of tears. Because I haven't seen you in so long.
I know I haven't. Gaby just flew in today, so we haven't even caught up.
Sleep deprived.
Yeah, and we haven't caught up.
No.
We catch up through text, but the specifics of life is not the same. So, but thank you for joining me at the table, and I wanted you to be on this episode because it's something very important, very important to the world that we live in now, and it's very important to you. So for my listeners tuning in, I've invited Gaby because she is a DACA Dreamer. And the term dreamers, it basically refers to the young men and women who were brought to the United States illegally as children. And these individuals can apply to work, but they have to endure a lengthy and expensive process. So there you have it. If you didn't know, now you know. So, dreamers have recently faced racial discrimination, fear of deportation, and the loss of their undocumented loved ones going back to their original countries. Yeah. So, many families have been torn apart and things like that. So, I truly have the honor of having Gaby here joining me on Benevolence just to express her experiences, being a DACA recipient, also known as a dreamer. So before we begin, just tell us a little bit about yourself, just the current status, because I know that you're gonna get into that later on.
So currently, like you said, I'm living in New York. I think I moved there in May, so not too long ago. So far, so good.
Yay.
So far, so good, but we did miss Florida, so coming down is good. And I'm still in school, close to finishing, and I'm interning, and I do finance.
Okay, so what's your major?
So my major right now is economics. So I was previously doing civil engineering, interned at a construction company, doing kind of engineering type stuff, and I realized I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Which is good, that's the whole purpose of an internship, to get real life experience. And I was like, I love construction. I, want to be a company that that's their focus, but I don't necessarily want to be in the engineering side. So I switched. Finance was always kind of like my plan B. So I was like, okay, let me see it from the finance side. And I enjoy it so far. So right now I'm doing financial planning and analysis and also treasury within a construction company. Oh, okay. So it's like a completely different view, but I still love it.
You do like it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I like it.
That's good. That's really good.
So far, it's good.
Awesome. So let's just get right to it.
Okay.
So everyone can just kind of just get to know your story.
Yeah.
You know, this is, I wouldn't say an interview, you know, this is more of a testimony type of where you came from, you know, where God has brought you.
Yeah.
In terms of, you know, just having to deal with that whole DACA situation and all of that. So let's start with our first question. Okay. So how old were you when you came to the U.S. and do you remember much of your home country?
Okay, so I came when I was 5.
Well, first, before I cut you off, tell everybody what's your nationality.
Oh, okay, yeah. I came when I was 5 from I don't know where.
We're not gonna be like.
So I came here when I was 5 from Honduras, Central America. A lot of people are like, "Where is that?" Like they're like, "Is that?"
It's under Mexico, isn't it?
Yeah, it's under Mexico, but not part of Mexico.
Yeah, I know.
No shade to Mexico, but every time I say I'm from Honduras, they're like, "Oh, is that part of Mexico?"
Oh my goodness.
Like, no, it's Central America. But so I came when I was 5. I came with my sister. I think actually I came like a month or 2 after my sister came. So a little background: my parents migrated over here too. They crossed the border, the whole 9 yards. I think probably my dad did it for sure. My dad came to the U.S. when I was 3 months old. Wow. So I had no recollection of like who my dad was, like between the ages, you know, since I was a baby till 5. And then my mom, once I turned 3, she moved over here as well, following my dad's footsteps. And then me and my sister followed 2 years after that. Okay. So I came when I was 5. My sister was probably 11, so she was a little older. And because she was older, she has a lot more memories of living in Honduras and the lifestyle. I think she was probably in middle school by that time. Okay. But because I was 5, I don't really remember much. Yeah. Like, I remember, like, little snippets here and there. For sure, I remember, like, my grandparents' house, you know, the farm life, the simple life. But a lot of my memories, too, like, get blurred out. Or if I look at a picture, I'm like, okay, I kind of remember that. But I don't really remember much. Yeah. Not too much.
Now, in terms of your parents, like, having to... I don't think people understand the process of getting out of the country and coming to the United States. They don't know that part. And like without maybe just telling all, but specific, like just in
kind
surface,
of like,
kind of explain the process of Honduras to the United States. Yeah.
So not just Honduras is doing this. It's like a ton of countries. People in Colombia, like from South America. Yeah. So when people say, oh, they crossed the border, they think like, okay, they just crossed the border, that's it. But that's like the ending. Like, you start in your country and you have to travel through all the countries between yours and Mexico. Exactly. So they had to go through Honduras, through Nicaragua, like, I'm actually thinking Nicaragua was below, but Salvador, like all of those. Mexico. And then Mexico.
Mexico's pretty big.
Yeah. So it took my dad, I think he said 3 months. Wow. On just journey. Like, it's not like you fly to Mexico.
Like a hitchhike.
Yeah, like a hitchhike. On foot, on car.
Whoever would take him to...
You take a book bag, stuff what you can, and you just go with whatever little money you have. And it took him 3 months to finally, like, cross the border. My mom, it took her, I think, maybe a month. But it's a very grueling, like, journey. Like, they tell us stories, and it's just, like, I can never imagine myself having even the courage to do that. Yeah. So it's very tough. It's like the experience itself mentally is grueling, but then also physically. Yeah. Because you're just like going through jungles, you know, like you're on foot.
Yeah. The other day and you know, if you don't know anything about this, like, get educated. Yeah. And I'm saying that now, and we'll talk about that a little bit, you know, later on, but Get yourself educated. Go to YouTube. That's what I do.
No, literally,
they
show
tons. Everything.
Yeah,
like do. A couple weeks ago, I saw, I don't know what country it was, but there's these ladies that every day, their job, that what they chose to do this.
Yeah.
Every day, they choose to do this act. So there's a train track that passes through their town. I don't know if it's Honduras. I don't know what country it is.
Yeah.
They make these food bags. And while the train is passing through, the men are literally dangling off, and they're throwing, they're throwing the food, and I'm like, I was like almost in the verge of tears.
Yeah, it's intense.
And like, these women choose to do that, so it's a daily thing.
Yeah,
you know,
it is. It's a daily thing.
It's so sad. And then I saw another one. I don't know what country it was, but the people that are escaping, they literally, it was just like a stream, but they would rather pay like $1 or $2 to get on a little raft over the stream than go on foot, because on the actual street is the patrol. Oh, okay, but the patrols see them crossing over, but they don't do anything.
Yeah, they don't.
So it was like a stream, not a river.
Yeah. Very
small. But the people, you know, that would leave, I don't know whether they'll call them refugees, immigrants, I don't know. But, you know, they would just rather pay the $1 to get on the raft over the stream than just walk to the other country.
Yeah, so a lot of times what can happen is on your way to the Mexican border is you can get stopped at every other border you encounter, and they can put you in their jail for that country.
Okay.
So that's why a lot of times you're not just crossing one border, you have to find your way through all of them. Because like if you get stopped in another country's jail, like what is your guarantee that they're going to let you out? Because keep in mind, those countries aren't like the U.S. Like, you go to jail and there's a whole process and paperwork. Like, no, you go to jail and then it's kind of like when we get to you, or like, you know, if we choose to, sometimes like it's very dangerous in the jail. Like you're starved to, like it's not like I don't even know how to explain it. But
no, I know
it's just so incredibly scary.
It is.
To them, it's like they rather, you know, go that route of just having to pay, even if it's just a stream.
And this was a guy that was doing a documentary. So this is a guy from America who is like following the path. Excuse me. He's following the path of someone who was trying to get to America. Yeah, it's just crazy. And then, you know, I see the wall that is there dividing America from Mexico, and there's a wall in the middle of a beach in Tijuana. You know, that these people can easily slip over. Like, that's why I say, if you don't know, instead of talking and giving your opinion, get educated.
Just get educated,
Watch these videos, because I promise you, like, your life will change. Because I've seen them, and it's just crazy, the journey. Yeah. And these are thousands and thousands of people. Yeah. You know, people coming from all over South America and Central America, you know, trying to get to what is the motherland, you know, and not the land of the free, you know,
of opportunities,
and it's just sad that, you know, we're still dealing with that, you know, we're still dealing with this issue of immigration. You know? This is nothing new.
No, it's not. This goes back years, like even when people were migrating from Asia, like the Chinese camps, you know, it's not like, this isn't something that just came out of the blue. It's not just South America, Central America. It's happened every time there is a nation or a community of people who've been wanting to migrate over here. And even now, DACA is not just for Spanish people. No. You know, maybe they might be the majority, but there's DACA recipients from all over the world. Yes. Going through the same thing.
Absolutely.
So it's definitely crazy.
So moving on to my next question would be like, how did you know that you were undocumented? Because, you know, you came at 5, so you came here, you established your life with your family. Then when did you notice or started to see that, okay, things are a little different? than what I'm
than everyone else.
And everyone else.
So I don't think there was like a specific moment where I was like, oh, okay, I'm an immigrant, you know, because my parents were also immigrants. So it was just something that it was known in the house. You know, it wasn't like a hidden secret or anything like that. But definitely there was like little moments in time where we might need a social, or we didn't have medical insurance, things like that, like throughout life, that then I would be like, oh, this is serious. Like, okay, we're undocumented, but this is how it's impacting my life. So like examples would be when we moved because we used to live in West Palm in Florida. So when we moved, I came to start 5th grade. Fifth grade in Lake Nona, predominantly white at that time. I was probably like the second Hispanic girl student. And they asked us, for public schooling, you don't need a social security. Yeah. And we didn't fill it in. And a lot of times, now thinking back, I'm like, if it's not filled in and it's not required, like why push it?
Exactly.
And the lady came back and she's like, oh, you didn't fill in the social, we need the social. And my mom didn't speak English that well, so I was always translating for her. And I told her, I was like, oh, they want the social. And she's like, oh, but we don't have that. Like, we're just leaving it blank. And I remember just asking, like, but why? And she's like, oh, because, you know, we're undocumented. And I was like, oh, okay. So it's like little things like that. I would be like, oh, now I get it. Like, this is one of those things, like, where it's gonna affect me. Yeah. And then going forward in high school, you know, I was in IB. I think that's when it started, like, I really started realizing, like, this is really going to impact my life.
What's IB?
So IB is International Baccalaureate program in high school that my high school had. And basically you just have more intense courses. It's like above advanced placement AP classes.
Okay, so it's like in my school, they call it Apex.
Yeah, it's like yeah,
gifted.
You're like gifted, whatever. Yeah. So I was in that.
Oh, okay.
Right, and I got it, and I was super excited. So I was super excited, and you know, from the very get-go, the whole point of this program is so that, you know, you're challenged to a completely different level. You're prepared for college. You can take AP classes and have college credit. So from the get-go that you get in, you start thinking about what school I'm going to go to. You're a freshman in school, but, you know, all these 4 years of high school, they're going to impact when I go to college. Yeah. And I started having those questions, like, okay, like, what college I'm going to go to, da-da-da-da. And I'm talking with my parents, and they're like, oh, but we don't know how to go about it because you don't have a social, so you can't go to school.
Financial aid either.
Yeah. Right? I couldn't even go to school because I didn't, like, have anything. Wow. So I think that's when it really hit me. I was like, wow, like, everything that I wanted to do, I can't do because I don't have these, like, 6-digit numbers. Yeah. And then even with, like, getting my license and everything like that, like, it was just something that I just felt like I wasn't gonna have. And a lot of that impacted the reason why I got out of IB. So I was so devastated that I was like, I'm not doing this freaking intense ass course, like, all of this work, and then I'm not gonna do anything. Because you're in high school, so it's like, it was like the end of the world for me. Yeah. So I was like, I'm not doing it. Like, I got, like, depressed. I was, like, sleeping in class. I'm like, I'm not putting effort in nothing. Wow. Like, I'm not gonna do it because it's a very intense course. Yeah. Like, it's all of your classes are super intense. Exams, like, every other week. I'm like, what is the point? I'm not gonna go to college. Exactly. You know, like, what am I really doing? And of course, being a high schooler, like, you don't think, but, you know, have hope. There could be more. Like, it's still gonna benefit you. The knowledge you have, no one can take it away from you. Yeah. So I ended up getting out, and I get out. I go into sophomore year. I think midway sophomore year, I got out, and then they announced DACA, and I was like, I am an idiot because I had already gotten out, but it was still like they weren't sure if they were gonna pass it. Okay. And then I remember, I think it was the end of my junior year, I went to get my fingerprints done, and then I went to get my license, and I got my social.
Wow.
So that was like completely life-changing. Like all of the doors that I felt like were closed were just like wide open all over again.
So can you explain what DACA is for those who've never heard of it before?
So DACA is Deferred Action for Children.
Oh.
Hold on. It's Deferred Action for Children. What is that last one?
It's Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals.
Okay.
So I am a young person who arrived in the United States as a child. Childhood arrival. That's a person. That's a DACA. Okay. So it's a Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals.
Okay.
So what are the benefits of DACA?
So DACA is Deferred Action of Childhood Arrivals, and basically why we received it is because we arrived in the country when we were very, very young. It wasn't by choice. The choice was, done by our parents or whoever it may have been. And because we came so little, all we've come to know is this is our country to us. Yeah. I have really faint memories of Honduras. All I know is living here, living in Florida. And it was an opportunity to get a working permit, which allowed you to get a Social Security. And with those two things, you could go to school, you could work, and you could get your driver's license.
Wow.
You pay taxes. So you basically get the benefits of being a resident, but not a U.S. citizen.
Okay.
And there's still limitations to compared between a DACA recipient and residents because we're not allowed to leave the country.
Okay.
Like, I can't just go fly back to Honduras and be back. Like, I can't leave the U.S. territory unless I ask for permission. And it's like an additional fee. It's like a whole process.
Okay.
So that's the benefits, like the main benefits that it gives me.
Okay.
And then with that, it's like a trickle effect. So I could just, like keep growing my career, go to school, work, save.
So did you ever try to get back to the IB program, or you just...
Once I got out, I was like, whatever.
You weren't going to try again?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was like, I'm over it.
Yeah.
Because it also was a 4-year program.
Okay. So you had to be there from freshman to senior year.
Yeah.
Wow.
If you wanted to do like 2 years, you would have had to do like all AP like freshman year or something right here. And I had already given up. I was like, yeah.
So now that our listeners know about what DACA is, lately there have been many comments made recently that they place the blame on the parents for bringing their children to the U.S. illegally.
Yeah.
So how do you feel about that?
I think it's a little unfair, just because, and you were the one who had told me this phrase, that we're called the dreamers, but our parents were the original dreamers, which is completely true because all they were doing was following the American dream.
Exactly.
And if I, think back to my parents' experience and what they had to live through living in Honduras, I would 100% would have made the same choice.
Yeah.
Because I think I've told you, like, my parents were extremely poor. Like, my mom didn't have, we're talking about it today, because I was telling her, I'm like, we're going to do the podcast with Ceci finally. And she's like, oh, okay. So I'm like asking her a ton of more questions. And I actually didn't remember this, but my mom didn't go to school with shoes.
Really?
Up until she was 13.
Wow.
So they didn't even have shoes to go to school. That's the kind of poverty that my parents come from. My dad was a little more privileged in this sense, but he dealt with a lot of like just childhood trauma.
Yeah.
But having them come together once they got married and everything, like they were still pretty poor. Like you could work, but you're not paid. Like even here, like minimum wage, there's no minimum wage.
Yeah.
Like you're not gonna get paid $7. It's like the poverty is extreme. They got married and they had a house made out of mud.
Wow. Like
the floor was mud, the wall, like that's their reality. And having me and my sister, be so little, I could only imagine them thinking like, what is it going to be of them if we stay? Like the education opportunities are not the same. Career opportunities are not the same. Just the lifestyle, like the security of knowing that when you're in your home, you feel safe.
Yeah.
You don't have that. Back then, you definitely didn't have it, and now it might have gotten better, but you still hear stories of like territory wars.
Yeah.
You know, in pueblos and things like that.
And people disappearing.
Yeah. There's
out of nowhere.
You could buy the police like nothing. Just slide them a few dollars and that's it. It's not the same. And I feel like when a lot of people place the blame on parents, they're not thinking of the situation that they were placed in.
Yeah.
You know, it's more of like a life or death situation. You know that if you stay, like, yeah, you could work hard as much as you want to, but there won't be that much of opportunity. There won't that ability to prosper.
Yeah.
You know, to make something of yourself. It's very hard. If you're in the minority or low income family, it's very hard to jump up to the what's it called? The middle class.
Say it again.
So if you're in the poverty or low income family, it's really hard to jump into middle class.
Okay.
So if you're middle class, you're kind of okay. There's still hope for you. But if you start from the bottom, there's like generations will go by before they jump to middle class.
Yeah.
It's very tough, you know? So, I mean, I understand why it's so easy to place the blame. I remember telling you, I was listening to a TED Talk, and I don't remember the lady's name, but she was basically explaining the mindset switch that we go through when we associate ourselves with people who are different from us. So when we lived a life, you know, only seeing one race or only experiencing one point of view, and we are exposed to someone who's different, a lot of times it's very easy to categorize them as the other.
Yeah.
But the minute you do that, you dehumanize them. They're no longer, you no longer see them as a human. You no longer sympathize for them or have empathy. You don't feel bad. You just see them as the other.
Yeah.
And when you dehumanize them, it's a lot easier to see them as the blame.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to place it on yourself.
Exactly.
And you don't want to place it on the people around you. So it's a lot easier to just say, oh, it's their fault.
Yeah.
It's them. They're causing this. And it's not something, like we were saying earlier, that's new. I mean, it's happened in history time after time.
I know.
It happened, like, as long as the Nazis, they blamed Jews. Just because, you know?
Yep.
So it's like, you can't help it, but I feel like the time is gonna come, like there has to be something to open up your eyes and to see, like, look, you might not have gone through this situation, you might not have been placed in that place where you have to make a choice. Do I go, do I stay? But we have to have, like, empathy.
Yeah, we do.
And I feel like as Christians, like, we, not that we're put at a higher standard, but we know of God's love.
Exactly.
You know, like, we know what his will is. We know his capabilities. So it's like, that is even more.
That's like, good.
Like, it tugs at my heart a little bit more.
That's really good.
It really does. Because I can understand someone who doesn't know God, who doesn't know that love. I can understand it because, you know, like, our mind is very strong.
Exactly.
And when we don't have that love, we don't want to give that love.
Exactly.
And I get that. But when you know God is real, that gets to me.
I know.
A lot. It really gets to me.
Because
it's like a battle. Like,
it is.
It's hard.
And a lot of the backlash, unfortunately, come from conservative Christians. Like, it's just so sad, you know?
Yeah.
The mindset. So it's good that you said that.
And it's hard. Like, the other day, so recently, because we keep having this conversation about this podcast.
Yeah.
I had always struggled, like, as soon as I became a Christian, I knew that, yes, a law was broken. But then I would think of all of these reasons why it was done. And I would always think, like, but God, like, you know why it was done. You know it wasn't, to do evil, to bring evil onto someone else. Like, you know the necessity that came behind it. So it would always be like a battle in my head, like, I know it was wrong, but like, can someone just give me a little bit of light, like a little bit of an explanation of where I'm to stand in this. You know?
You were feeling...
Like, I was feeling like it was entirely wrong. It got to a point where I was...
It's okay.
No, I'm like choking.
It's okay.
Oh my God. This is completely different, doing the podcast in front of you than doing it over the phone. It got to a point where I felt like being who I was wrong overall.
Yeah.
And like it would make me feel like I couldn't be a Christian because I was an immigrant.
Yeah, because you were breaking the law.
Because I had broken the law. I was living illegally.
Yeah.
I was living in this like because you don't share with people.
No.
Like, my family knew, all of our family knew, of course, but I didn't even want to tell my best friends.
Yeah.
Like, they came to know, my closest best friend came to know probably like 6 years after.
Wow.
And then my other best friend came to know a few years after that.
Wow.
But it wasn't something, and the only reason why I felt comfortable was because I knew that she also had family that had gone through a similar situation. Okay. Yeah. So I felt comfortable enough to share. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't something that I was loud and proud saying. Mm-hmm. And it didn't get easier as I got older, and it didn't get easier as I grew within my Christianity life. If anything, it opened up my eyes even more, because I would be that person who's standing in a room and comments are made and they had no idea like I was an immigrant or that I had DACA.
Wow.
And I would just stay quiet because I didn't emotionally or mentally like have the ability to positively explain to them in a positive manner that where we could both grow from the situation. Yeah. It was just a lot of anger built up. Like, I had way too much to say, and a lot of it might not have been positive. Yeah. So I just always kept quiet. Mm-hmm. And that kind of like drew me to want to know, like, what is your point of view? Like, if we're both Christian,
exactly,
how are you seeing it different from what I'm seeing? Like, what are you seeing? And it just made me realize that a lot of times they just saw it from the economic perspective, which I understand. Mm-hmm. Because yes, we're Christian, but we're not perfect.
Exactly.
So I kind of had to just realize that.
You know, like the Bible, and please don't quote me on any pastors or any leaders who know about the Bible more than I do. Yeah. But like, immigration has been since Bible times. Mm-hmm. Like, this is nothing new. Even the Bible talks about like the Jews and the Gentiles, you know, that they're always separate, and then, are you a Jew or are you a Gentile? Yeah. Like, the Gentile was the immigrant. Yeah. You know, and then like in the times of Egypt was, you know, they had a bunch of Jews being slaves in there, you know, so they were people who came from somewhere else, and, you know, they lived hundreds and hundreds of years in Egypt, but they were Jewish. And then when the Jews left in the Bible with Moses, they were migrating to Canaan, and something that was only supposed to take 40 days and 40 nights took 40 years, you know, and a whole generation had to die because of their mistakes, you know, but they were immigrants. They were migrating to another place, you know, so this is nothing new. No, and they forget, you know, that Bible-based, you know, history.
Well, a lot of people, and don't quote me either.
No, because I'm not no scholar.
But there's a verse in the Bible, and I had mentioned it to you when you came to visit me, because my mom actually brought it to my attention, because she was kind of feeling the same way too. And it's just a verse that says you should always abide the law of the man, because the law of the man is placed by God, or something along those lines. So a lot of people use that to justify the reason why immigration's not shouldn't be, like, immigration's wrong. Yeah. But recently I found a podcast that literally these women, like, it's like they were just reading my mind.
Was this the one that you sent
I sent
me?
it to you.
I know, I haven't had a moment.
You need to listen to it.
I know,
it's really good. So basically, there are these women who grew up conservative, Republican, Christian, their whole life. Everyone around them view it the same way. And one of them ended up marrying a Hispanic person. And they started working with refugees, people who were immigrating. And she got to see their point of view, their side of the story. And she struggled really hard because there's always like the good and the bad between both parties.
Yeah.
And like there's views in the Democratic side that we don't agree with.
Exactly.
And that's the reality of it.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's also things in the Republican that we don't agree with either.
Absolutely.
So she struggled, and what her conclusion was that she gave an example like with abortion. She was saying she doesn't believe in abortion. She believes in a baby's life, just the way she believes in an immigrant's life. Mm-hmm. And the same opportunity needs to be given on both sides.
Okay. So
she can't stand and say, I'm against abortion and I'm against immigration.
Exactly.
Because it's contradicting itself. Mm-hmm. And it was a really incredible podcast. She actually calls her dad, who is still Republican. And she tells them, like, hey, like, did you hear my interview that I did on my point of view? And it gets really heated. But the way he was expressing himself, you really get to see that genuine emotion that he felt against immigration.
Wow.
And a lot, like, I was listening to it at work, and I was on the verge of tears. Like, my skin was, like, boiling. I'm like, and I sent it to you because it was so good.
I haven't had a moment,
but it didn't entirely give me an answer or like a solution, but it just kind of like made me feel so comfortable. Yeah, to see that I'm not the only one. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's great.
Like it was so alleviating. It was great.
Wow.
Because I feel like a lot of times, just how I dealt with like immigration and I didn't want to speak about it to people. I feel like a lot of times Christians, we feel the same way. We're stuck, especially when it comes to politics. Like we're stuck in the middle. We don't want one side, but we also don't want the other. And we are not vocal about it.
Yeah.
And a lot of times we fail to realize like there's people who, like me, who, like I need you to be vocal. I need like some type of, like I need to know I'm not the only one.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it was tough.
And we can I can't even imagine like the amount of people who are just in silence. Like they don't say anything. Yeah. And they're undocumented. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like,
I'm sure there's a ton.
Plenty.
I'm sure.
That's incredible, Gaby. That's like, this was not part of anything, but I'm glad that you mentioned like the Christian aspect of, how people feel when it comes to immigrants and stuff like that. So that's like, that kind of hit it on the nose pretty much. Now, DACA was about to be canceled when our current president took his reign in the White House. And I say this sarcastically because you can already tell my, I'm not going to say no more. But, yes. So, DACA was about to be canceled.
Right.
It wasn't canceled. Mm-hmm. So during that time of DACA canceling, how was that going to change your life?
It was going to literally flip it upside down. Like pancake flopped completely over.
Yeah.
Because I'm in school. Mm-hmm. I work. I drive. Like all of these things are opportunities that were given to me through DACA.
Yeah.
So having DACA being eliminated just completely would have shut everything in my face. And it was really tough because you're just kind of living in an uncertainty. Like you're just in the limbo. You don't know what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of like good and bad is that one where they were planning to remove it, it wasn't a thing where like, okay, tomorrow it's gone. So you would have time to plan.
Okay.
But it still was like, oh my gosh, so much anxiety.
Yeah, I bet.
Because I would have still had mine for one more year, but then after that, it's like, what do I do? Mm-hmm. Because DACA there's no form of citizenship through DACA. So I either have it or I don't, but I can't necessarily apply for a visa. I can't just go and like apply for my residency or anything like that. I would just have to go back to Honduras or remain here illegally. But if I remain here illegally, I wouldn't have been able to keep working where I work, go to school, even drive with a license. I would have had to risk that.
Wow.
And oh man, I can't even imagine. I would have never moved to New York.
Yeah.
Because like there's no way.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's still sad because I mean, yeah, it was renewed, but there's still no solution to it.
Exactly.
So I'm definitely pro DACA, but I also want there to be a solution. Yeah. Because right now it's just kind of like just a temporary opportunity, but it's not an answer. Yeah. So there's definitely a lot of work that needs to be done, and you know, have it come to a conclusion, because it's just an ongoing story. I feel like that you're in, that you can continue your job, you can continue going to school, you can continue doing all these things, but there's no guarantee that at the end you'll be able to continue doing it for many years to come. And my goal is not to go to school and go back to Honduras, or keep going to work, save money, and go back to Honduras. Like, this is where I've been raised since I'm 5 years old. Like, this is where I want to help the community. This is where I want to grow my career, you know, help other generations younger than me, you know, learn from generations older than me. So to have that uncertainty, to know like everything you're building for, you might not be able to see the end result. It's like, it's tough. Yeah.
Well, you hit everything on the nose. Everything after that. I'm just going to say like a few things, but I think you've pretty much said everything that I wanted to ask you. But, you know, I personally believe that dreamers or DACA recipients are looking for a better opportunity in the United States. And people need to, like I said from the beginning, get educated. Yeah. Get educated. You know, many people focus on the 800,000 DACA dreamers, you know, who are often admired for their resilience, but we forget about the parents who took that leap of faith, took that, you know, bold step. They actually went through a journey of the unknown, of, you know, were they even gonna get to the United States? You know, we forget about the parents. We forget even about those that never made it. Yeah. But were on their way to trying to get that opportunity, you know, and we need to remember them, you know. And these families, they came from their country, scared for their lives, you know, so they seek a better opportunity in the United States. So who are we, you know, to take away everything from them? So everything that they've worked for, they've built, they've accomplished, will be worth nothing if DACA is taken away. So, you know, I'm so glad that right now, you know, it's kind of like neutral. Yeah. Yeah.
And to add what you were saying, I think a lot of people have an incredible amount of misconceptions of immigrants, and it's just, oh, they're just taking. But that's not the reality of it. Like, the reality is that we want to be a part of the community. We want to impact the community. Exactly. You know, we're not just trying to like do everything here, take it and run with it. Yeah. You know, like, there's so many DACA recipients that are doctors, lawyers, are literally finishing med school. Some are already doctors. And they're contributing to the society. They're contributing to the community in such impactful ways. That's great. To think that, like, people still have this conception of they're just taking the... I hear people say, we don't pay taxes. Like... I definitely pay taxes. Like, everyone is paying their taxes. Like, and then you hear things like, oh, like, they're taking advantage of like food stamps. Like, first of all, you can't get food stamps without Social Security. So if you're really undocumented, you don't have access to anything. It's like, there's so many things, you know. Like, DACA recipients have really, like, at the beginning, people always doubted, if we give them this opportunity, is it going to be worth it? And I think we've more than, you know, proved that yes, it's worth it, because a good majority, 75 to 80%, are in school, are working, are driving, took that opportunity and ran with it. And now they've grown, they've given back to their community, they're professionals now. So it's like, we've had that testing period.
Exactly.
So why are we still being treated or being looked at as if we're just taking away when we're not? We're adding.
Yes.
We're adding diversity. We're adding knowledge. All of these things, and like in our life as a whole, that's like just recognize it, you know?
Yeah.
And I think just with that alone, and just having compassion and understanding, put yourself in someone else's shoes, like that just goes a long way, even if it's just one person. Because Absolutely. I've been in a lot of situations where even a professor of mine is saying something and everyone else is believing it. And I'm like, oh my God. You need to go Google something, because that's just his opinion. It's just his perspective. So it's tough, but it's just like, I hate it. I hate being choked up, but yeah, I think we're contributing a lot and we're proving ourselves.
Absolutely.
And I think the opportunity was given. We gave the results. So what now?
Do something about it.
So what's next?
Good.
Because they gave us opportunity, but now we want to get kicked out. It's like, that wasn't,
Well, Gabby, I think this was good. This was really good. So if you didn't know anything about DACA, if you didn't know anything about Dreamers, if you didn't know anything about, the immigration experience, I hope that as you're listening to this episode, like, you have a full-on personal insight of what, DACA is and what a dreamer, who a dreamer is, because, and I believe that everyone's a dreamer. Everyone that comes from another country seeking an opportunity, a second chance at life, is a dreamer. They're considered dreamers. So,
and even if they don't agree with it, just become knowledgeable. Have your own, grow your own opinion.
Exactly.
Don't just jump on anyone else's. Actually have a reason why you're against it.
Exactly.
Not just because you feel like it.
Exactly. That's good. Well, there you have it.
You finally did it.
Yay! Gabby, thank you so much for joining me at the table today.
Thank you
to
for
talk
having
about,
me.
Your experiences and, your courage, your resilience, your hard work to not go unnoticed. I love you so much. And I'm so happy that you're in my life. If Gabby is a future girl boss, aspiring girl boss, she got some plans up her sleeve for the future, and especially for Latina women. Yeah. So you guys need to stay posted on that, and I will definitely I want to be part of it.
Yes.
So in the near future, so keep praying for Gabby, and so that she can, and you got this. Like, everything that you're doing so far, like, it's amazing.
I'm trying.
It's so inspiring to me. Going to New York and living the New York life.
Honestly, I feel like I haven't accomplished nothing. I'm just like trying.
You're networking.
That's all I'm doing.
Okay, so Gabby goes to a lot of events, like women events.
Yeah.
That they offer in New York. Obviously, New York is one of the capitals besides Washington D.C., but it's like of everything. Like 2 million people live there.
The opportunity is like times 10.
So every time I see Gabby's Insta story or anything, like, she'll send me something, and she's always in these networking events for women and empowering other women, and that's just all me. And I wish that Orlando would have things like that so that I can go and I can network with people as well. So but Gabby has a lot of good insight on things that she wants to do for the future and empowering Latina women, entrepreneurship and stuff like that. So I know she has great plans for the future. So just keep her in your prayers, so that God can lead her and that God can do her thing.
And I just want to add to that, because I know you said in New York, like, there's all these opportunities. But just because we're not in New York, like, there's still so much chance to learn. Like, especially there's so many podcasts. I'm literally listening to a podcast every day. I listen to yours every Monday.
Yay.
But I listen to podcasts every day, whatever it may be, even if it's something random. Like, there's so much room for knowledge. And I feel like if we would just step outside our comfort zone,
That's
like,
true.
yeah, I'm going to school, I'm learning economics, but that's not the only thing I can learn from.
Yeah.
You know, like, there's so many other things. And I at least don't feel like I've accomplished anything because I go to these events and that I attend them or volunteer at them, but being surrounded by those women, you just feel the support and you feel the need for unity between women. And it just encourages me even more. And like, that's all I want everyone else to do is just be encouraged to learn more. Even if you're not in the situation where you're in a city, you have that chance. There's so many things online. Like,
and that's like one of my goals, you know. Not only, I know that last episode I was talking about, like, my theme of the year is to be present. Because that's, like, something major that I want to really focus on is being present in, like, now with my family, my friends, and everything. But I also want to get, like, informed. I want to get, like, inspired. I want to
and it doesn't even have to be anything specific. Like, I literally was listening to a podcast between Adidas and Reeboks. Or I think, and how they started, like, years ago. Like, it's all of these knowledgeable things that just makes you a more well-rounded person. Like, I'm really introverted, so I use all of these random podcasts.
That's good, though.
Look, if you're an introvert, listen to a random podcast. I promise you'll bump into someone who's into that, and that's your conversation started right there. So just, like, any opportunity you can get. Like, we have the world at our fingertips, like, with our iPhones. Google is in our hands all the time.
Exactly.
And even Instagram. Like, I've done a cleanse, and I've unfollowed a lot of the people I went to high school with, and, you know, just people that I just know, but it doesn't necessarily always add.
Yeah, it's true.
So I followed all of these Instagram pages that with different things, with finance, with real estate, with technology, women empowerment, and now, like, that's what my feed consists of. That's what I'm looking at on the daily. So that's, like, a daily reminder, because I know I love Instagram. So how can I use Instagram to better myself and not having to get rid of it? Exactly. And that was my way. So there's always, like, in the smallest of things to just grow.
That's awesome. I love you, Gabby.
I love you too.
Thank you for being here.
I'm so excited to hang out. I know. I'm so happy for you.
I'm so excited that you're here. And thank you just again for giving us your experience and your testimonies. So I know it's going to bless others. And I know that it's going to empower other DACA dreamers, you know, people that are undocumented. It's going to, you know, just kind of give them that hope. You know what I mean? You know, because a lot of people, they just deal with it quietly.
Yeah, in silence.
Anything. Yep. And they just, you know, definitely putting your story out there is going to bless other people's lives for sure.
And for the people who aren't going through that situation, just, you know, just keep praying for the people who are. And just be aware always of your surroundings. You never know who might be around you. If you don't have nothing nice to say, don't say it. Things like that. It's just common, you know, courtesy. But it can really impact a person. I feel like, and you guys will be good.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you for having me, Ceci. Yay. I love your podcast. Listen to it every Monday.
Thank you.
And I feel like you are definitely reaching a ton of people with all of these topics. You call me a girl boss in the making, but you really never acknowledge yourself.
No,
because
you
know me. You know this podcast is, like, gonna just bloom. It's gonna explode.
Thank you.
And you are a girl boss.
Thank you. I'm trying. And thank you all for tuning into Benevolence, where kindness matters and all are welcome to the table. Make sure to follow me on Instagram at Benevolence Podcast or at I am Ceci Diaz to know a little bit more about me and Benevolence. If there's a topic that you would like for me to discuss in the future, please do not hesitate to email me at benevolencepodcast@gmail.com with requests, petitions, or comments. I want to hear from you. And stay tuned for next Monday's episode of Benevolence. You don't want to miss it. Bye!